The wind that night did not simply blow, it sliced. It crawled under coats, through worn-out sweaters, into bones already tired from fighting a world that never seemed to notice them. The sky hung low and gray, threatening snow, and the streetlights flickered like they were unsure whether this corner of the city was worth illuminating. On the steps of a closed laundromat, beneath a broken sign that buzzed faintly in the cold, a woman pulled her thin jacket tighter around her small daughter and whispered the words no child should ever have to hear. She said they would sleep in the cold tonight, and the little girl nodded as if she understood what that meant. Before we go any further, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the power of one human being to change another's life, take a moment right now to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with someone who still believes in good, and subscribe to the channel for more stories that remind us what humanity looks like when it's at its best. Her name was Elena. Once, not long ago, she had an apartment with yellow curtains and a kitchen that smelled like cinnamon on Sunday mornings. Once she had a job answering phones at a small dental clinic, where the biggest stress in her day was a patient who didn't want to reschedule. Once she had a husband who promised her forever. But forever turned out to be fragile. The clinic closed when the owner retired and sold the building. Her husband left after months of quiet distance, chasing a promise of better opportunities in another state that somehow didn't include her or their child. The rent climbed higher than her savings could stretch. Bills piled up like silent accusations. When eviction day came, the landlord did not look cruel. He looked tired. Tired of excuses. Tired of waiting. And so the locks changed. Elena had tried everything. She filled out applications in libraries to stay warm. She stood in lines for assistance that wrapped around blocks. She swallowed pride and called relatives who offered sympathy but no space on their couches. Each rejection chipped away at her confidence until she felt smaller than the shadows she hid in at night. But she kept smiling for her daughter, Sofia, who was only 6 and believed her mother could fix anything. Elena told her it was an adventure. She told her they were camping in the city. She made it sound like a game. That night, though, even Elena's imagination was too tired to invent magic. The temperature was dropping fast. The cardboard they had collected from behind a grocery store barely softened the concrete beneath them. Sofia's shoes were too thin for winter. Her toes curled tight to keep warmth. Elena pressed her hands over her daughter's ears, shielding her from the wind's howl. She told her they would sleep and tomorrow would be better. But in her heart, she was terrified that tomorrow would look exactly the same. Across the street, inside a small convenience store that smelled of coffee and old newspapers, a man named Marcus watched them through the glass. He had seen people like them before. The neighborhood had its share of stories, its share of broken paths. Marcus had his own history of sleeping in cars and counting coins for gas. 10 years earlier, after a failed business and a mountain of debt, he had found himself staring at his reflection in a public restroom mirror, wondering how everything had unraveled so quickly. It had taken years of rebuilding, of swallowing pride, of accepting help from a stranger who had paid for his first month's rent when he had nothing left. That single act had shifted something in him. He never forgot it. Now Marcus owned the convenience store. It was not glamorous, but it was steady. He worked long hours, opened early, closed late, and kept a small cot in the storage room for nights when snowstorms made driving impossible. He could have looked away from the scene outside. He could have told himself it was not his responsibility. The world had enough problems without adding more to his shoulders. But something about the way Elena wrapped herself around her daughter refused to let him turn back to his register. He stepped outside, the bell above the door jingling behind him. The cold hit him hard, stealing his breath for a second. Elena stiffened when she saw him approach, instinctively protective. Pride flared in her chest. She had endured enough pity for one lifetime. She prepared to apologize, to move along, to explain that they would not cause trouble.
But before she could speak, Elena, her voice quiet, almost to herself, said that they would sleep in the cold tonight. Marcus looked at the little girl, whose eyes were wide but brave. He thought of the man who had once handed him a key and told him everyone deserved one more chance to stand back up, and he leaned down slightly, lowering his voice so it felt like a promise instead of a performance. "Not while I'm here," he whispered. Those 4 words did not fix everything. They did not erase debt or heal abandonment, but they changed the course of that night. Marcus invited them inside, not with grand gestures, but with simple certainty. He told them they could warm up for a while. Elena hesitated, fear and gratitude wrestling inside her. Trust had become a fragile thing, but Sofia's shivering decided for her. They stepped into the store, and warmth wrapped around them like an unexpected embrace. Marcus handed Sofia a cup of hot chocolate from the machine near the counter, and gave Elena a coffee. He pretended not to notice the way her hands trembled when she held the cup. He asked no invasive questions. He simply listened as Elena, slowly and cautiously, shared pieces of her story. She did not dramatize it. She spoke plainly, as if facts alone could explain how life had shifted so quickly. The store's clock ticked steadily above them. Customers came and went. None paid much attention to the trio in the corner, but something quiet and powerful was unfolding. Marcus knew the cot in his storage room would not be enough. He knew one warm night would not solve a systemic problem, but he also knew that small beginnings often carry the seeds of bigger change. As midnight approached, he made a decision that would ripple far beyond what he could see. He told Elena she and Sofia could sleep in the storage room that night. It was not luxurious, but it was safe and heated. He offered blankets and locked the front door earlier than usual. Elena's eyes filled with tears she had been holding back for weeks. She tried to refuse, afraid of owing something she could not repay. Marcus shook his head gently. This was not a transaction. It was simply human. When Sofia finally lay down, her breathing even and peaceful, Elena sat awake for a long time. She watched her daughter's chest rise and fall. She felt the unfamiliar sensation of warmth against her skin. And for the first time in days, she allowed herself to believe that maybe they would not always be invisible. Outside, the wind continued its relentless song. But inside that small store, hope had found a foothold. Morning arrived with pale light filtering through the high windows of the storage room. Sofia woke first, confused for a moment by the unfamiliar ceiling, then smiled when she realized she was warm. Elena had barely slept, her mind racing with gratitude and anxiety. She did not want to overstay. She did not want kindness to sour into resentment. Marcus had already brewed fresh coffee when they stepped out. He greeted them as though this arrangement were perfectly ordinary. He handed Sofia a small paper bag with a muffin inside and told her she had an important job that day, to keep smiling. Sofia took it seriously. Elena insisted she needed to find work immediately. Marcus nodded. He mentioned that the store's supplier sometimes needed temporary warehouse help and offered to make a call. He also admitted he could use assistance organizing inventory in the back room. It was not charity, he emphasized. It was work, honest pay for honest effort. Elena accepted, relief mixing with determination. She worked tirelessly that day, stacking boxes, labeling shelves, cleaning corners long ignored. Marcus noticed her efficiency, the quiet pride she took in even the smallest task. Customers noticed too. Some began to linger, curious about the new presence behind the counter. Days turned into a fragile routine. Elena and Sofia slept in the storage room for a week, while Elena saved every dollar she earned. Marcus reached out to a friend who managed a small apartment complex and explained the situation without embellishment. The friend agreed to lower the deposit if Elena could show proof of steady income. Marcus vouched for her without hesitation. Yet challenges did not disappear simply because someone cared. Rumors spread quickly in tight neighborhoods. A few customers questioned Marcus's decision to let a homeless woman stay in his store. They worried about liability, about reputation. One evening, a regular customer confronted him, suggesting he was being naive. Marcus listened calmly. He knew risk. He had lived it. But he also knew that compassion had once saved him. He refused to let fear dictate his choices. Quietly, he told the man that sometimes the safest investment is in another human being. Meanwhile, Elena wrestled with shame that lingered like a shadow. She feared becoming dependent. She feared that if she stumbled again, she would confirm every doubt whispered behind her back. But each time she saw Sofia laughing at the counter, carefully arranging candy bars as if they were treasures, she found renewed strength. 2 weeks later, Elena held a set of keys in her trembling hand. The apartment was small, with cracked tiles and walls that needed paint, but it was theirs. Marcus helped them move in with a borrowed truck and a donated mattress from a neighboring shop owner who had quietly decided to contribute after watching Elena's dedication. That first night in their new place, Elena stood by the window and listened to the city hum. It was not silent like despair had been. It was alive. Sofia curled up under blankets and declared it the best house ever. Elena smiled, knowing it was far from perfect, but perfection was not the goal. Stability was. Marcus did not disappear after handing over the keys. He continued to offer shifts at the store, gradually increasing Elena's responsibilities. Within months, she was managing orders and handling accounts. Confidence returned to her posture. Customers who once doubted her began greeting her warmly. She had moved from the margins back into the flow of ordinary life. Winter slowly softened into spring. The night that had begun with freezing fear felt distant yet unforgettable. Marcus sometimes watched Elena interact with customers and felt a quiet pride, not in himself, but in the simple truth that kindness multiplies when given room to grow.
Years later, on another bitterly cold evening, Elena locked the door of a different building, a community resource center she now directed. After gaining stability, she had taken night classes in social work, determined to understand the systems that had once failed her. She wanted to become the bridge she had desperately needed. It had not been easy. There were nights of studying after long shifts, mornings of exhaustion, but every challenge carried the memory of that storage room and the whisper that changed everything. The center provided temporary shelter referrals, job placement assistance, and warm meals. On its wall hung a simple plaque with no names, only words, "Not while I'm here." One night, a young mother arrived, her face pale with fear, her child clinging tightly to her side. The story sounded achingly familiar. Rent raised beyond reach, a job lost without warning, no family nearby. Elena felt the past rush back like cold wind against her skin. She knelt down, looked the woman in the eyes, and promised they would not face the night alone. Marcus, older now, with silver threading through his hair, visited the center often. He never asked for recognition. He simply brought supplies or fixed broken shelves. He would sometimes catch Elena's eye across the room, and no words were needed. They both understood the quiet miracle that had unfolded from one decision. If this story has touched your heart, if you believe that one act of compassion can echo across years and generations, please take a moment to like, comment, and share this video. Your engagement helps these stories reach more people who may need a reminder that kindness still exists. And before we close, write in the comments the words, "Not while I'm here," if you promise to stand up for someone in need when you have the chance.
On a particularly cold anniversary of the night they met, Elena walked past the old laundromat steps with Sofia, now a teenager with confident eyes and dreams bigger than fear. Sofia asked her mother if she remembered that night. Elena nodded. She remembered every detail, the wind, the shame, the exhaustion, but most of all, she remembered the whisper. She realized then that rescue does not always arrive with sirens or spotlights. Sometimes it comes in the form of a man unlocking a door and refusing to let another human being freeze in plain sight. Sometimes it begins with 4 simple words that draw a line against the darkness. As they walked away, snow began to fall gently, no longer threatening, but soft and almost beautiful. Elena squeezed her daughter's hand. The cold no longer meant despair. It was simply weather. And somewhere, perhaps on another corner of the city, someone else was whispering those same words to a stranger in need, keeping the chain of compassion alive. Because the truth is this: the world changes not only through grand gestures, but through ordinary people who decide that suffering will not pass them by unnoticed. And on that long-ago night, when a mother believed she would have to let her child sleep in the cold, one man chose to stand between them and the wind. Not while he was there.